Welcome to Learn English Speaking. Let's talk stories. Here we bring you amazing stories to improve your English fluency. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more exciting lessons. Let's learn together.
Chapter 1 Beginnings. If you know Starkfield, Massachusetts, you know the post office there. If you know the post office, you have probably seen Ethan Frome driving up to it in his buggy, and you have probably wondered who he was. It was there that, several years ago, I saw him for the first time. He was a noticeable figure. His tall, strong body was badly twisted, and much shorter on the right side than on the left. He moved slowly and painfully, pulling himself along. Just the few steps from his buggy to the post office were clearly difficult for him. His face had a sad, grim look. It was the face and body of an old man, and I was surprised to hear that he was only 52. I learnt this from Harmon Gow, a man who knew all the families around Starkfield. He's been like that since his bad accident, nearly 24 years ago, said Harmon. But Fromes don't die young. Ethan'll live to 100, probably. He looks like a dead man already, I said. I guess he's been in Starkfield too many winters, said Harmon. Most smart people get out of here. Why didn't he get out? I asked. He had to stay and take care of his family. First his father got hurt, then his mother fell sick, then his wife. And then the accident? Harmon gave a little smile. That's right. He had to stay then. Ethan Frome used to drive in from his farm every day at about midday, and because I picked up my mail at about the same time, I often saw him. He came to the post office only for a newspaper, and sometimes for a packet from a medicine company for Mrs. Zena Frome. Starkfield people understood that he did not want to stop and talk, and on most days Frome climbed slowly back into his buggy and drove away without a word to anyone. At that time, my company had sent me on an engineering job near Starkfield, and I was staying at the home of a lady called Mrs. Ruth Hale. Before she was married, her name had been Ruth Varnum, but her husband, Ned Hale, was now dead, and she had returned to live with her mother in the Varnum home. It was a grand house, large and white, with tall, dark trees outside. Although it was clear that the Varnums no longer had much money, theirs was still the finest house in the village. Ruth Hale enjoyed talking about her neighbors, and I hoped that she could tell me more about Ethan Frome. But when I asked her, she just looked unhappy and said in a low voice, Yes, I knew them both. It was awful. I asked other people, and everybody in Starkfield agreed that Ethan Frome had had more troubles in his life than most people. But nobody explained why he had that sad, grim look on his face. In the end, I learnt the story, piece by piece, from several people. As often happens, the story was different each time, but I slowly began to put it together. And my interest in Ethan Frome grew stronger when, a little later, I met the man himself. It happened like this. Every day, I had to travel about 3 miles to the station, where I got my train to work. I usually hired a horse from Dennis Eady, the rich village shopkeeper. But in the middle of winter, his and most of the other Starkfield horses caught an illness. For a day or two, I could not find a horse to hire anywhere, until Harmon Gow had an idea. "Why don't you ask Ethan Frome to drive you?" he said. "His horse ain't sick, and he needs $1 or 2. That Frome farm and sawmill don't make enough money to keep a cat alive." So Ethan Frome agreed to drive me, and every day for a week I sat beside him in his sleigh as his thin horse pulled us over the hard snow to the station. Then, in the icy evenings, he brought me back to Starkfield. He was not unfriendly, but during the hour's drive, he never turned to look at me, and spoke very little. Once I said something about Florida, and he told me that he had been there. Another time, he showed interest in a science book of mine, which I had left in his sleigh by mistake in the morning. But most of the time, Frome drove without a word, and I began to feel that he was like the land around him. This sad, silent man and the snow-covered fields had the same kind of cold loneliness. Anything warm and alive inside him was locked away, under the deep, icy cold of too many Starkfield winters. After about a week, we were driving back one night in terrible weather. Heavy snow was falling, hiding everything in a soft white cloud, and the air had an icy coldness. The old horse was getting tired, and I got out to walk beside him, but I found it hard to keep moving. After a time, Frome looked into the darkness and said, "That's my place down there. We've had enough of this." I understood that he was offering me a bed for the night, and we turned down towards the poor, lonely-looking farmhouse. After I had helped him put away the sleigh and take care of the horse, we fought our way through the snow to the front of the house. I followed him inside, and from behind a door on our right, I heard a woman's voice, a thin, high, whining voice. Frome opened the door of the room. "Come in," he said to me, and as he spoke, the whining voice fell silent. That was the night when I began to understand Ethan Frome and to put together his story. Chapter 2. Coming Home from the Dance. It was a cold, clear night, and the village lay under deep snow. Bright, icy stars shone from a dark sky down on the silent whiteness below. Young Ethan Frome walked quickly down the empty, moonlit street. He passed Edie's fine new shop and the Varnum's house with its 2 tall black trees. Below that was the slope of the Corbury Road. On clear nights, this was often full of young people coasting down, laughing and shouting as they went. But there was not a sound from the icy slope as Ethan passed by. Tonight, all Starkfield's life was in a room in the church. Its windows sent yellow light across the snow, and the sound of dance music flowed out into the still midnight air. Ethan hid in the shadows outside the church and looked in through the nearest window. The room was hot, bright, and filled with young men and girls. The music had finished, and people were getting ready to leave. Suddenly, a lively young man with thick black hair jumped into the middle of the floor. He went into the crowd and pulled out a young girl. She was dark-haired and had a bright red scarf around her head. The music started again, and soon the floor was alive with dancing figures. Outside in the cold, Ethan's heart was beating fast. His eyes followed the girl's red scarf and cloud of brown hair as she danced in faster and faster circles. The young man was Dennis Eady, the son of Starkfield's most successful shopkeeper. Dennis's own success with the young women of the village was well known. Ethan watched jealously as Maddie, the dark-haired girl, held Edie's hands and smiled at him with her dark, shining eyes. How can she look at him like that? Ethan wondered unhappily. Doesn't she realize what he is like? Ethan used to walk into Starkfield to fetch home his wife's cousin, Maddie Silver, on the few evenings when some chance of amusement brought her to the village. Maddie had been with the Fromes for a year now. She lived with them in their lonely farmhouse and helped Ethan's wife, Zena, with the housework. Ethan had liked the warm, smiling girl from the moment that she arrived. She brought hope and life and brightness into his home, like someone lighting a fire in a cold room. But she had more than brightness. Ethan found that she loved the beauty of the natural world around them. Here at his side, living under his roof and eating his bread, was someone who felt the same wonder as he did. He could tell her things and show her things, the bright stars in the clear night sky, birds flying over golden fields, the blue shadows of trees on sunlit snow. And he knew that these things gave Maddie and him the same feelings of deep, silent happiness. But now, those feelings seemed so far away. He watched Maddie's laughing face as she flew round and round the room, and he felt lonely and unhappy. Then he remembered a fear that he had tried to forget. His wife was a cold, silent woman who noticed everything, but said very little. Her only real interest was her own ill health. But recently, she had started to complain more and more about Maddie's housework, and to say things which worried Ethan. "I'll need someone to help me when Maddie leaves," she had said suddenly one morning. "Oh, Maddie'll never leave us while you need her," he replied. His wife lay in bed and watched as he got dressed. "If a poor girl like her has a chance to marry a smart boy like Dennis Eady, I ain't going to stop her," she said in her flat, whining voice. "The doctor says I can't manage on my own, so we'll need to hire a girl." Life without Maddie. Ethan could not think of it. Her voice, her sweet smile, her gentle arm in his arm during those night walks back to the farm. These were the only things which mattered in his world. Had he been stupid to think that Zena would not notice his interest in Maddie? He had not thought about it before, but now, as he stood in the darkness outside the church, he remembered other things that Zena had said, and his fear grew. The dancers, now in their thick coats and scarves, came out into the cold night air. Ethan heard Maddie's voice in the crowd, and he stepped back into the shadows, suddenly afraid to speak to her. The crowd quickly disappeared, and Maddie stood alone outside the church, looking around her. Then a man's figure appeared. "Nobody to walk you home, Matt? What a pity! But ain't I lucky that I got my dad's horse and sleigh down here, waiting for us. Come on, let's take a ride." The girl said nothing, but stood still, watching, while Dennis Eady went to untie the horse. In the shadows, Ethan, too, watched and waited, with his heart beating fast. Maddie held his life in her hands. Eady got into the sleigh and called to Maddie to join him. Then she turned and ran up the slope. "Goodbye! Have a lovely ride!" she called back. Eady laughed and followed her up the slope in his sleigh. After a moment, he jumped down and tried to put his arm through hers. She stepped quickly out of the way, and Ethan's sudden fear turned to happiness. A moment later, he heard the sound of Eady's sleigh going away, and saw Maddie walking alone across the snow. He caught up with her by the Varnum's trees. She turned round, surprised. "Oh," she said, I thought maybe you couldn't come." "If you thought I couldn't come, why didn't you ride back with Dennis Eady?" he answered. "Oh, how did you know?" she cried. "Where were you? I never saw you." They stood in the dark shadows of the trees, and their laughing voices ran together like water dancing down from the mountains in springtime. He put his arm through hers, but neither of them moved. Ethan wished he could stand there with her all night in the blackness. Maddie took a few steps forward and then stopped, looking down the icy slope of the Corbury Road. "There were lots of people coasting this evening," she said. "Ned Hale and Ruth Varnum almost crashed into the big tree down there. It's so dangerous, that tree." "You'd be safe with me, Matt," replied Ethan. "Would you like to come coasting some night? We could come tomorrow, if there's a moon." "Oh, yes! How lovely!" They walked along in silence. But then, all Ethan's jealous fears returned. "I guess it's natural that you're going to leave us," he said at last. "Leave? You mean Zena ain't happy with me? I know I ain't so strong or so smart, but I want to try. I really do." "So you don't want to leave us, Matt?" "Where could I go?" she whispered, almost crying. Her answer made Ethan sad and happy at the same time. They continued their walk, with the dark, starry sky above them, and the quiet, lonely fields all around. At the entrance to Ethan's farmland, they passed by the Frome graves. Ethan had always felt that the gravestones were looking at him and saying, "We never got out of Starkfield. Why should you?" But now he didn't want to escape. All he wanted was to be with Maddie, and someday to lie under that cold ground with Maddie beside him. Ethan was happy now, in his world of dreams. For the first time, he put his arm around Maddie. She let it stay there, and they walked up to the farmhouse. The house was dark and quiet. Zena always went to bed early. On the nights when they came back late, she used to lock up the house and hide the key outside the kitchen door. Ethan felt for the key under the usual stone. "Matt, the key's not there," he said. This had never happened before. They began to look for it in the darkness. Suddenly, there was a sound inside the house. They heard a step on the stairs and saw light under the door. Then the door opened, and Ethan saw his wife. She stood in the dark doorway, a tall, thin woman with a blanket round her shoulders. She held a lamp in one hand, and its light threw strange shadows onto her thin, lined face. She said nothing, and they stepped into the kitchen. It was deadly cold, like a grave. Ethan shook the snow off his boots. "I guess you forgot us," he said, looking at Zena. "No, I just felt too bad. I couldn't sleep." "I'm sorry," said Maddie. "Can I do anything to help, Zena?" "No, there's nothing you can do." Zena turned away from her. "And why couldn't you shake that snow off outside?" she said to her husband. They left the kitchen, and the two women went towards the stairs. "If I go up now, Maddie'll see me go into the bedroom with Zena," thought Ethan. "And I don't want that. Not tonight. I think I'll stay down here a bit longer. I've got some paperwork to do," he said. "What, now?" said Zena. "You'll die of cold." Ethan did not answer, but turned back towards the kitchen. Then he saw the look in Maddie's eyes. Was it a look of warning? "I guess you're right. It is awful cold down here," he agreed. With his head down, he slowly followed his wife up to their bedroom.
Chapter 1. Emil Goes to the City. "Now, Emil," said his mother, "get ready. Your clothes are on your bed. Get dressed, and then we'll have our dinner." "Yes, Mother." "Wait a minute. Have I forgotten anything? Your other clothes are in your case. There's some food for your journey. These flowers are for your aunt. I'll give you the money for your grandmother after dinner. No, that's all, I think." Emil left the room, and Mrs. Fisher turned to her neighbour, Mrs. Martin. "My son's going to the city for 2 or 3 weeks. At first, he didn't want to go. But what can he do here while his school's closed? My sister's asked us again and again to visit her. I can't go, because I have so much work. Emil's never travelled alone before, but he's old enough now. He'll be all right. His grandmother's going to meet him at the station." "I think he'll enjoy the city," said Mrs. Martin. "All boys like it. There are so many things to see. I must go now, Mrs. Fisher. Goodbye." Emil came back into the room and sat down at the table. His hair was tidy, and he was wearing his best jacket. While he ate, he watched his mother. "I mustn't eat too much," he thought. "She won't like it when I'm going away for the first time." But his mother was thinking about other things. "Don't forget to write to me when you arrive," she said. "All right. Give my love to your aunt and your grandmother and your cousin Polly. Look after yourself, and be good. I don't want anyone to say that you're not a polite boy." "I promise." After dinner, Emil's mother went to the sitting room. There was a tin box on one of the shelves. She took out some money and came back to the table. "Here's £70, she said. 5 £10 notes and 4 £5 notes. Give your grandmother £60. I couldn't send the money to her before, but I've worked hard and I've saved it for her. The other £10 is for you. Your return journey will cost about £3. Use the other £7 when you go out. I'll put the money in this little bag. Now don't lose it. Where will you put it?" Emile thought for a minute. Then he put the bag into the pocket inside his jacket. "It'll be safe there," he said.